Welcome into the first video series of our TribPreps football previews. We're going to be bringing these to you every Thursday. My name is Colten Bartholomew, sports reporter here at the Tribune. To my left here is Todd Sommerfeldt, sports editor, and fellow sports reporter Alex VandenHouten. We're going to be getting to a lot of different games throughout the year, more than in the past. So you're going to see Tribune staffers out a lot of different games, getting video, doing more game stories, more feature stories, more columns, a lot of stuff coming to you this high school football season, so a lot of fun stuff. But this is something that we're going to be trying to do before games on Thursday and then after games wrap up on Friday night when we get back in the office. So expect to come to lacrossetribune.com and see these videos every Thursday and Friday night.
lacrossetribune.com for everything.
Absolutely. So obviously, we're here Thursday. We're about to get started with some high school football games. We're starting tonight with Eau Claire North playing Central over at UW La Crosse.
And they're at Central tonight.
Oh, that's Central?
Yes.
Oh.
They're at Central tonight.
My bad. All right. All right, never mind. Melrose Monroe and also playing at Bangor. That's always a fun one that these two teams play every year. It's really fun to watch just that rivalry go back and forth. There's not, other than just being in the same area, there's not that natural rivalry of, history or whatever it is, but just they play every year and it's just kind of fun to watch that back and forth.
It's a good matchup for both too. They both get a lot out of that. Melrose has been really good in the Dairyland, Bangor obviously in the Bluffs, but both of them really get a lot out of week one. It's kind of been one-sided in terms of outcome with Bangor winning a lot lately, but I know Melrose still likes to have this game, obviously. That's why it's continuing.
And Alex, like I mentioned, you're going to be over at the Eau Claire North Central game. Central's got a ton of weapons. Just what is something that you're seeing or that you kind of want to see from Central in this first game to maybe kickstart their season a little bit that people might not know right off the top?
Yeah, we all know about Johnny and Jordan Davis. I think obviously those two are when you talk about Central football this year, those are two guys you got to talk about first and foremost. But for Central, who's going to be, outside of those guys? Who's going to step up? Is Terrence Thompson going to be that guy? Obviously, that's kind of the big thing this year. He's playing football for the first time since freshman year.
Interesting to see what his role is going to be.
I mean, when you have a 6'8" guy, I just thinking what, the red zone's going to be like with guys like that inside the 10-yard line. To make Jordan's life a lot easier in the red zone as well. So hopefully it can give him something. Peter Fleming, too, running back. He's going to be able to hopefully pick up the slack a little bit, but that's going to be the key to watch. Who can step up outside the Jordan brothers this year.
I think also a factor will be what they do defensively. Mm-hmm. And they're playing North has struggled for the last few years, so I don't know what a good gauge we're going to get out of the outcome of this thing tonight. But I think that's something we want to see from Central is what the defense is going to do. They kind of transformed last year into getting a lot of takeaways. The year before they weren't that kind of defense. Had trouble doing that, but did a really good job of it last year, and they're going to have to play defense in the NBC this year, obviously. So I don't know what we'll be able to take away from, but it'd be good if you're Central to see a good defensive performance tonight.
I think you mentioned a big one too, Alex. Peter Fleming taking over that starting running back role. They had Jordan Cross doing that, Stephen Cross doing that last year, and then Jamar Davis doing on the fly sweeps and other things like that. That really kind of supplemented their running game. How they get it this year might be a little bit different, but if Peter Fleming can get to 80-90% of that, it opens up everything for their offense.
And I think the loss of Jamar Davis is going to hurt him a little bit more than people think.
Sure.
A guy that could do it all kind of last year. Obviously, we know how fast he was, state medalist in track and field, but he's a guy I think that's really going to be missed on this offense.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move to Friday. Make sure you're coming back to lacrossetribune.com for wrap-ups of the Thursday games, and you'll see some more coverage of those games on Saturday as well. But looking at the Friday slate, we've got an actual conference game in week one, which you don't see a ton of with the Ridge and Valley. But Wanawalk is playing at DeSoto, and then we go through our non-conference slate, which is pretty heavy in the first week. Eau Claire Memorial at Logan, Hudson at Onalaska, GET at West Salem, Chippewa Falls at Holman, Black River Falls at Sparta, Mauston at Toma, Blair Taylor at Onalaska Luther, Osceola at Arcadia, Boscobel at Brookwood, Westby at Darlington, Viroqua at Mineral Point, and then Cashton at
Fremont.
Fremont. All right. Thank you for that save.
I could tell it was me.
Yeah, I couldn't get that. I looked at it thank God.
We'll be at 5 of those games, those top 5 non-conference games we mentioned: Logan, Onalaska, GET, West Salem, Holman, Sparta, Black River Falls. Covering a lot of those games, as like I mentioned before. I want to start with that Holman matchup. This is one of those things that Holman does every year. They challenge themselves right out of the gate with some of the toughest teams that they're going to see. Yep. These are playoff level type games. In week one, playing Chippewa Falls, a team that maybe hasn't had the greatest state success of in their history, but always solid and always competitive. Why do you think it is that Travis Kowalski and the Holman program kind of does this to themselves? They know the slate they have in front of them, but they challenge themselves right away.
He really believes the entire MVC should be doing this, and he's the biggest school in the MVC, so it kind of has to start with him.
Sure.
If they're not going to go out and play these games, the other teams aren't, and I think his thought process is that until we start playing these bigger schools, people aren't really going to take notice of what's happening over here. We've had some good teams over here in the MVC in the past. Have had some make a deep run here and there, but nothing consistently. And Holman this year is going to play Chippewa like they usually do. They're going to play Menominee, and they're going to play Stevens Point. So Stevens Point is a much bigger school. So, and that'll be a mid-season game. I think this time, from what I know at Chippewa Falls, it's a much younger team. I think they'll still be a good team, but I think Holman is probably in a better spot starting the season, and has a lot of things that they're going to want to see out of themselves in this game. I think Chippewa is going to have a little tougher time than they have in the past, but we'll see. I mean, Chippewa is always solid, and kind of no matter what you think of those teams coming in, I think this is, again, a good game for both teams to start the season, like I was saying about Melrose and Bangor.
Todd, we read your preview story about Holman earlier this week, and the question kind of was, who's going to end up starting at quarterback? They've got three solid options: Cam Weber, Rylan Wall. Both of those guys played quite a bit last year. Injuries kind of made Holman throw in whoever was at quarterback.
Yeah.
But Austin Decken, excuse me. Yep, forgot him. What do you think it's going to come down to make that starting decision for the Holman coaches, or do you think it matters too much because they can kind of interchange them if they need to in a game?
I don't know if you want to get into interchanging. Maybe that's what they'll choose to do. I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on where else can you play some of these guys.
Sure.
If it's me, I'm thinking Rylan Wall showed a lot last year in terms of being a passer. And Weber didn't get that chance. He got hurt right away. And then Decken got hurt too. I mean, all three of these guys started last year, at least one game. So I think Wall really showed what he can do as a passer in that triple option offense. And I think maybe you look at Weber and Decken at different positions. Maybe they're looking at Wall at a different position and not throwing the ball as much. We'll see.
Sure.
But to me, just based on what I saw last year, and this isn't saying he's the best of the three, because I think they all probably bring something solid to the table in this. But I think if you have Wall out there showing that he can throw the ball the way he is, I think you maybe can utilize the other two in different ways and kind of enhance what the team brings to the field offensively.
That makes sense. And I think what Holman is going to hang its hat on early, even if we know the triple options are going to be effective at points, but I think their defense is going to be something that they're relying on right out the gate to be solid and keep them in games, even if they struggle a little bit offensively as they're working guys in different spots.
Yeah, I think that'll be the case. Again, with Holman, you could say this about any team this year in the MVC is you want to see what they can do defensively. There's going to be a lot of really good offenses in this conference this year. And if somebody can go ahead and play good defense, it's going to give them a better shot to end up on the top of that. I mean, it's kind of a logjam at the top if you look at it. And some people have said they think Central's going to win. Some have said Holman's going to win. Right now, I say Onalaska until something different happens. That could also just be that we're a little more familiar with the guys they have coming back too.
Sure.
But I think their offense is going to be fantastic. I don't see any reason to think Holman's isn't. We know Central's is going to be. Don't sleep on West Salem and Sparta. I'm really interested to see what they can do. I'm not getting away from the question here, but it just I think when we talk about that, it's about every school rather than what can Holman go out and do defensively. I think and it might take a couple weeks to see what these teams have.
Sure. Todd's going to be at that game on Friday, so make sure you're following him on Twitter, Sommerfeldt LAX, for all the updates there, and we'll have game story, recap video, all that stuff Friday night at lacrossetribune.com. You mentioned West Salem, though, and that's obviously one of the games we're going to be at on Friday as well. An old school Coulee matchup, not in the last 7-8 years, but an old school Coulee matchup of GET.
With no Coulee this year.
Yeah, no Coulee, right.
At all.
One season only, though.
One season, yes.
We got GET playing at West Salem. Alex is going to be at that game. This is one of those classic super physical games.
Yep.
Going to be one of those battles of attrition in week one, where who can just withstand that physicality throughout. GT is a little bit like Holman, where they run that wing T power running game offense, and if they complete a pass, it's awesome, and they're all happy, but they're not super concerned about it. And then West Salem's a little bit different, where they keep that physicality. They like to throw the ball a little bit more. They consider themselves a spread team, but are based on the run. Just what are some of the keys that you see from the GET side? I know you were up there talking to them about their season and especially this game starting off with West Salem.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those, I think, really bruising type of games, 9-6 type of stuff, because GET and West Salem, as we both know, you went to West Salem, I went to GET this year for our previews. We both know, there's not a whole lot of experience coming back for them. There's a lot of question marks. GET on their side alone, just talking to John Stephenhagen when I was up there, he just said basically, I have a offensive lineman come back at tight end and Bryce Burns. That's pretty much what he has in store right now. And he was just trying to piece things together, especially that offensive line. He said he was kind of, really taking it slow with them. They really have to try and figure it out. There's a lot of coaching that comes with it just from a player's perspective on his own. He's just on the field. The offensive line has to do a lot, calling different stuff out here and there. And it takes a lot of experience to really get that down. And that's something they do not have right now. So they're going to be figuring out week one on offensively where it is right now. And West Salem, we know for one thing, their offensive line is going to be pretty solid.
Yeah.
That's going to be their backbone. How much is that going to be, a positive, or how much of an advantage is that going to be, knowing they can rely on that offensive line where GT can't. So West Salem maybe have the advantage in the trenches, and when it's a 9-6, 9-3 type of game, that's going to be probably the difference.
I don't know if we're going to see a lot of field goals.
Yeah, probably not a lot of field goals. But yeah, maybe a couple of extra points, 12-6, type thing.
Something like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what West Salem does with the offensive line. They do have some experience there. Derek Roberts in the backfield didn't get a ton of carries last year, but he got in some games and seemed to do well. They got a passing quarterback this season, which they didn't have last year. Barney got in a little bit and threw the ball well when he played. So it's such a good rivalry, and the games are usually close. And it's going to be a fun game to watch, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned Derek Roberts. That's a guy I think that Coulee Region fans are going to know a lot about midway through this season, because he's going to be really relied on both sides of the ball, but especially offensively, to be that workhorse back that West Salem kind of hangs its hat on. So I think by mid-season, you're going to see his name in the paper a lot, with lots of yards and lots of touchdowns of West Salem's having some success.
It's going to be fun to see who can kind of jump out from this game too. Like you mentioned right there, maybe as well as Sawyer Schmidt, who's taking over at quarterback for GT. Could he be something, a guy we keep an eye on too? So that's one of those things with that game, is just so interesting because it's kind of unknown right now, and it'll be fun to see what kind of guys take advantage of that.
And one more game that we're going to be at on Friday, Hudson at Onalaska. Onalaska, you mentioned, Todd, earlier that they're one of the favorites just because of their experience coming back on their roster to be an MVC contender right down to that last week of the season. And this is a good test for them off the jump here, to not only test what their offense is going to look like. I know Tom Nishinsky, their head coach, is always a little bit concerned with their offensive line just because they've had a lot of turnover there in the last few years. But they've got a returning quarterback in Austin Larson and a lot of weapons for them. And the biggest weapon that I want to talk about is somebody we haven't seen in the Coulee Region sports team in a couple of years, Jess Ondell.
Yeah.
He got hurt. He was at Aquinas as a freshman.
Yep.
Helped them win a state baseball championship.
As a pitcher,
As a pitcher, yep.
He could hit too.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, he was a good all-around player as a ninth grader. So, but then he gets hurt, and then ends up transferring. So he's been out of action for 2 years, dealing with the injury, and then sitting out the year for transferring over to Onalaska. He's a guy that they're really relying on in both in the defensive backfield and as a running back. They don't want to load up Nathan Lubinsky, their running back from the last couple of years, who's dealt with a lot of injuries. They don't want to load him up too much, and they don't want to put too much on his plate physically. So him being that second, maybe even like 50-50 split type of guy with Lubinsky, I think Ondell is going to be kind of one of those keys for Onalaska all year.
Yeah, I think I went out there this summer and talked to Coach Nishinsky, and he was pretty excited about him defensively at that point. We didn't talk a whole lot about offense. I think they're just happy to get him on the field. He's probably just happy to be competing.
Yeah.
Because it's been so long since he's been able to do anything. So I'm looking to see how he fits in with that defense. And like you said, if he seems like he would be a pretty good option to me in terms of splitting carries in the backfield and lightening that load a little on Lubinsky. I think Lubinsky will still hit some big plays and will still get the majority of the carries, but having another option back there is always good.
And with Lubinsky, you wrote this in the summer, Todd, but he's going to be moving down to the defensive line, pairing up with Connor Haggerty at the defensive end spots. And Tom Nishinsky doesn't make any bones about it. They're playing a lot of spread teams, a lot of pass-first teams, his goal is to get after the quarterback. He wants to put pressure on him however he can, so he's going to put two of his best athletes just rushing the passer pretty much every play. I'm really excited to watch what that's going to look like, just because I can remember playing high school football as a tackle. When you see a smaller guy in front of you, you're happy at first, but then it's like, oh wait, he's a lot faster than me.
Move.
Yeah, I gotta move. I gotta get my hands on him. I gotta do something. So I think it's gonna be really fun, kind of watching those battles, because maybe Nate Levinsky isn't the biggest guy in the world, but he's a strong guy, and he's gonna be a load for some tackles to block in this conference.
Yeah, interesting to talk about two guys that are so different in terms of size.
Sure.
What they bring to the table in those, and we'll see what that experiment is. He's kind of played all over on the defense. Over his years, and Levinsky has been a factor on that team since he was a freshman. So now he makes that last shift. He keeps moving around, but we'll see how effective he is with this one. That's going to be a good game for Alaska, and I think tell us a lot about what they can do.
Yeah, it's another good non-conference game too.
Yeah,
play Hudson.
We have some good games here that will be. It's a little different in week 2. Everybody goes away.
Yeah.
So everybody's home in week 1, but everybody goes away in week 2. So. We'll take a look at those obviously next week and not worry about spending time on that now.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our preview show, but make sure you come back to Lacrosse Tribune tonight, see about these Thursday games, and then a ton tomorrow with our previews, and then wrap up video tomorrow night, Friday night at lacrossetribune.com. So that's going to be kind of the schedule going forward throughout the rest of the football season. You can depend on these videos coming out. It's kind of an extension of what we did with our podcast last year, putting on video for you now. But for Colten Bartholomew, that was Todd Sommerfeldt and Alex VandenHouten. We will see you tomorrow night.